Tough Call Mediation is brought to you by Herb Legal LLP, serving your mediation and freelance paralegal needs in Ontario, New York, Quebec, and throughout North America. Connect to their website today at www.herblawservices.com.
Hello, and welcome to Tough Call, a mediation podcast. My name is C.T. Ayler, and today I have with me my mentor and friend, Karen Smith, a paralegal and mediator. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm surviving like the rest of the world.
We were just complaining about our morning caffeine beverages before we started recording. Yeah.
Yes, I'm one short of two.
Yep. Yeah. I just poured myself tea because here's the thing. We were talking about flavored coffee, right? And my husband, he has a cupboard full of all of the, he's like coconut rum and cinnamon twist and vanilla. And I was just like, bleh, 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 bleh. And we haven't done a grocery run in a bit, so we're totally out of my dark roast coffee. So I've graduated to tea, which is fine.
I did notice the teapot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, listeners, what I need to kind of help you out with is before Karen became a paralegal and mediator, she was involved in social work, and she did a whole bunch of really interesting, fascinating things. And Karen, I was hoping you could kind of start us off a bit by telling us a little bit of your experience and background and what you did.
Well, it's, I think people are always interested in where I came from and why I came from it. But to be honest with you, I never saw this coming. So 10 years ago, I looked into legal services and getting trained in it. And somebody actually said to me, now's not a good time for you. You have a young family and a new career, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I had taken a job in social services. The funny part was I had no idea what I was in for. I went from being probably pretty naive in life to becoming specialized in anti-human trafficking stuff, high-risk domestics, all the efforts that you would take to protect people. But what it did to me was it desensitized me to the people's false charms.
Right.
And I think that started me off in this path. And it wasn't until, I've always been able to have conversations with people, but it wasn't until I took some time off work due to a health reason that I decided, I'm done with social services. Mm-hmm. And I jumped into my own empire, you could say. So I've been busy building an empire that consists of mediation, specifically high-risk conflict mediation, because I do believe that you can bring the manipulators to the table as long as you, as the person heading the table, understands they're going to try a few things. So it brought me that direction, and now I practice in criminal law as a paralegal, and I do have this side stuff that I do with mediation and helping people strategize against what's the word of the last 5 years? The narcissist.
Right.
I don't believe the narcissist exists as much as the behaviors do. And so I that's the kind of the approach I like to take today.
Yeah, I like that you said that. Yeah. I like that, is there is a problem in our world right now when suddenly people become aware of an issue, and some people don't even realize that a narcissist. Well, everyone has potentially narcissistic personality issues. It's just you haven't gotten to a point where it's become a disorder and it's a mental health issue. But you have, listeners, there have been times when I've had the opportunity to watch Karen in action, and I mean, we can't get into the specifics of the cases and the mediations I sat under with, but I was always amazed at how, like, I could say, wow, you're so intuitive, but I know because of your background, you were able to really narrow in and focus on specific issues, especially in mediation with, separation and divorce issues where there are high conflict potential parties, but you could, and you were very careful with the questions, but I was just sitting there going, man, I don't even have the patience for this.
Have you ever heard... Have you ever heard that term? I hate to say this. It takes one psychopath to know another. And technically, you're always out of every... I went to a course once, and I think this was my aha moment, where I was learning the checklist that the police use to assess people in domestic violence. And the comment made was, if you're a family of 4, there's 1 out of 4 of you that has the tendencies to be a psychopath. And I thought, wow, oh my God, I have 3 daughters and me. That means somebody's smarter than me, right?
Which one of my daughters is smarter than me?
And I have to say, like, that particular course was over 8 years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. So getting that little piece of information, it probably drove how I tend to go about my conversations. Some would say, so basically you manipulate right back. Probably I do. Or is it an answer of more like, I'm prepared for whatever direction you take? So I find that people will say, oh, they'll cooperate, they'll communicate. My husband or my wife, she'll get along, he'll get along, it'll be fine. We never had problems like that. What I find happens is money drives people crazy. Right. It's really not even a question in family mediation. Let's take a custody issue. I don't even think the custody is really the issue. It's about taking away something from another person or giving to the other side, something that you have worked so hard in, that how can I just give it away?
And an issue of control. So yeah, okay.
It's the control. But is it a control that's meant to hurt people? No, it's actually a control mechanism that's meant to protect them. So I'm talking about the person who had a relatively normal marriage maybe, and then one partner just decides, I'm not happy, okay, and leaves. I see a lot of that. Right. But where I see a problem with today's age is media. Yes. Social media will actually drive the mediation between 2 people more than the 2 people can do the work. So I find that one of the biggest obstacles when I'm sitting in front of anybody is social media. What have they heard? What have people told them? What have they lay in bed at 10 o'clock at night thinking about? Okay. And they say, oh my God, my friend Henrietta said I shouldn't put up with this.
Right.
So you see what happens? That third party comes in.
And it's multiple third parties, really, that you're bringing up, which is you're right. You're 100% right about that.
That was just, Tuesday night's call after dinner out with 8 people, and then you come home and then you have mediation the next day. Well, thank you, friends and circles. You have managed to put your friend into a frenzy that's not ready for mediation.
And they're spinning out and they're catastrophizing and oh my gosh, you're so right. You're so right.
It's so real. I sit. So let's just explain a little bit. Yes, I'm in family mediation, but I also have a partner, Mohana Law, that I work with, and she's a lawyer. And I have behind me in my experience the ability to go and research law. actually work in certain aspects of family law as, a consultant. So I can see, in addition to my family mediation, what actually is happening in the court systems.
Yeah.
And that's another funny thing. There's so many people that have figured out how to delay, create obstacles, and through non-communication, manage to manipulate not only family mediation, but the next steps that complete it. And that would be court.
Right.
Right. It's such a convoluted.
Yes. And no one's winning. And I think that's what they don't understand. Nobody's winning in that process. And you brought up such a really good, such a good point about it is I don't know why so many people have this understanding, and it's almost like I feel compelled to let the world know that this myth that we've built up in our heads of, because I joke all the time. I think I've joked to you, right? That court is just principal's office for adults, right? It's like they go in there and they think, okay, I'm super right. I'm the good guy. My ex-partner is super wrong and they're the bad guy. And the judge is going to see this and I'm going to win because I'm amazing. And everyone has told me so. And they forget that they're giving up their power to somebody else as opposed to having that control in private media. Because as you just brought up, it's the delay tactics and all that. It's all, as I've seen, and I think you're alluding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but alluding to that those delays and those tactics and those expenses are set up to be controlling, but it's the actual opposite. They have more control if they're just like, let's not go to court, let's sit down, let's work this out amongst ourselves. I just don't get it.
Mediation professionals pride themselves, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I appreciate the process when it works. But sometimes it's not about completing mediation. Mediation, it can also be about narrowing the issues. We don't have to have we don't have to solve and create world peace. We just need to get that list of 10 issues down to 3.
Whoa, wait a second, what? We're not creating world peace, Karen? What?
Yeah, I know. But I will say this. I've heard lawyers that are in, not the same lawyer I work with today, but another lawyer once told me twice on 2 occasions. He says, I don't know how you do it, because I know when the people arrive into the office, no one's communicating. But when they leave you, they're laughing.
That's so
and it's
nice.
Because I think at the beginning of their experience with somebody like me, I'm not there to say I have a process for mediation. I have, I don't talk to them like I'm a doctor, because I'm sure as hell not a doctor. I am a person that's probably I tend to take clients that are from a similar environment to myself.
Right.
That's my other trick.
Right.
Because I talk to them like it is. This is what you're dealing with. Why?
Yeah.
I don't say, why are you doing that? I'll say, why can we not use the tactics and the communication styles that we were raised with to sort this out? So sometimes just breaking down the fear up front is what I need. People, when I do an intake, for instance, I talk to each person independently, and that's when I start to scream. Okay, it's not.
Sorry, I thought you said scream for a second. You start shouting at them.
Scream
blah, blah, blah.
No, it's when I start to scream, and I'm doing quotations without the picture of, what is making this situation hostile. Yeah. Okay. And so I listen to them. It's always hurt. Somebody has got left.
Right.
Somebody got left and somebody did the leaving.
Yeah.
And so it's I also don't believe marriage in the way that we would know it historically from, or traditionally from our parents and our conventionally, that's the word I'm trying to think of, from our elders or our grandparents and stuff. It's not the same these days. No. It really isn't. There's more services available, so people tend to go off kilter faster.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
They go back. The people say, "Oh my God, there's so many you could talk to."
Right.
You know, well, that's fine, but it also forces people not to have a discussion with themselves.
Yeah. And each other.
And that's that conventional relationship that I'm talking about. Historically, people had to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, myself and my own practice is, let's get back to talking. Because if we don't figure out a way to communicate by the time we're done this, like, we may narrow the issues, we may, lay all the stuff out on the table, but if we don't leave this room with a plan on how to communicate with each other, you might as well have never spent the money to speak to me.
Right.
Okay. So the other thing that'll happen in those kinds of mediations, especially when the power imbalances, that's
so tricky.
Yeah. I'm always appreciating the phone calls or the texts or posts in, just in public networks where people will say, well, Karen, if there's any power imbalance, you can't do it. Yeah. Well, unless you have some of the experience that I have, they're absolutely necessary to be able to do them. And you need to be able to say, I don't like that behavior, stop it. And but what I don't do, and you'll never hear me say, I don't like that behavior, stop it. Okay. You'll never hear me condemn somebody like that in front of their partner. But what the conversations will lead to is, I know you're uncomfortable, but we got to get through this.
Right,
okay.
Right.
So let's talk about those power imbalances. You and I often talk about power imbalances.
Yes.
You always say, Karen, how do you know?
I know.
How do you know? Have you ever watched a really good argument?
Yes, but sometimes I walk away going, how did they do that? Like, it almost seems scripted, Yeah.
So you start learning. Like, stuff was happening to me, and my career was falling into place before I'm a big universe person. So my career was falling into place before I even knew what the hell law was. Okay. I remember being in social services and applying for the job, and somebody said, Karen, you have the ability to snowball somebody. Can you manipulate people? That was a question in my third interview for the government job. Can you manipulate people?
Wow.
And it's funny, after 10, 15 years, like I just said earlier, you remember little pieces of who or what was said to you. They actually build you. But what I find happens in mediation today is people use it as a place the judge won't listen to you crying your eyes out.
You don't have the time for that. They just don't.
A mediator will. I've heard judges say, why are you crying?
Yeah.
And then the poor person leaves court and says, they hated me. Well, you know what? That's one of 6 judges you're going to have before your time is done.
Well, and the judge is seeing like maybe 80 to 100 people that day. So he really doesn't, or she really doesn't care.
But I always say to people, if you want the judge to decide how you're going to exit your marriage, keep going. If you want to have no control over the decision, keep going. Keep being the person nobody can get along with, because you'll lose it all. And that's not okay, right? So, I get the people throwing their hands in front of me saying, look, this is all the calluses I've gained over my 16 years of living with this person.
Boo-hoo. What are you going to do about it?
And I'll say, well, if that was 14 years ago, did you actually tell this person that you didn't like it?
Well, I did like this one time.
Yeah. So what I find is people use so it's kind of like when you get into a mediation and you can find out, or you're having a screen call and you're going, I don't have a script that I follow. Lots of people have a script they follow and a checklist for this and that. I don't. I simply say, have you ever feared of being hit, or has anyone ever hit you?
Right.
Have your teenage children. Maybe it's a mediation that has nothing to do with spousal.
Yeah.
Has your child ever assaulted you?
Or dealing with elder mediation too, like,
and same thing.
estate.
Yeah, like, because if it's somebody you care about and they take a swing at you, the damage is done.
Yeah.
Right? So can you mediate that? Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You can mediate that in a form of, we have to recognize that your relationship has, for all intents and purposes, the way you saw it unfolding in life has ended.
Yeah.
The way you relate to each other has ended. One has fear now.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe never intended it, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and then other people will say, okay, well, my wife decided to leave, but she constantly calls, constantly has an opinion about my life, and we've been alone for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I also find is you have to be able, let's say if there's no children,
right,
how are you going to deal with each other in the future? So
you have to look at each other forever if you stay together. So what are you going to do about it?
Some people, it's so true though, because some people, I'll say, include them in your Merry Christmas list. But that's the only time once a year that you'll talk to them.
Mm.
It's a time and a place maybe in that particular family where healing is happening. The person has their defenses a little bit more down. So thinking of you this year, Merry Christmas. Hope you meet somebody who makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge, powerful movement somebody could do, and two people can do, to help people move.
Yeah.
So mediation is all about movement. We may say narrowing the issues. That's movement. Starting to communicate in a different way. That's movement. So the reason court systems stall their own process when you're mediating is because they actually know that discussion helps.
Right.
So let's talk about the person who has been assaulted, and you get in there and they've pushed the person into the corner. They may not have hit them yet, but they're so bullish in how they approach the other side.
Yeah.
So I have a discussion on how that won't help you.
Okay. Let's take this into sort of a fictitious situation.
Okay.
So I'm in a relationship with somebody me in my 20s, when I thought I knew so much, but I was so dumb.
We are all like that. Yeah.
I actually remember a particular relationship I was in where you brought up such a good point earlier, is I thought I had communicated it, but I really hadn't. So there I was, and there's that flush of love and the hormones. And I mean, sex comes into it too, right? Like it's so powerful. And we're not even always aware of, like, especially if we're a little bit more open to experimentation and being a little bit more, involved with someone before we're thinking, and I'm not like, you should totally abstain from sex before marriage. It just wasn't me. That wasn't who I was. So there I was. Yeah. But I look back now, like, especially with my kid now, I was just like, don't you think about that. But okay, there I was. I meet somebody, and I've been love bombed in the past, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what that was back then. I had no idea what that even looked like. So this person's coming in, and they're just so like, they're so into me, and and everything's just Disney. It's perfect. You hear the Disney music at the end, end. Everything's so awesome. So this is supposed to be happily ever after. And then suddenly you get, like, you move in with them and whatnot. And suddenly all of these, like, I remember the first time I had I've had a lot of stuff happen to me, but I remember the first time that something really wrong happened. The floor falls out from under you. There's something it's like a gut punch that it doesn't even have to be physical, but there's this sudden doubting of yourself. Like, they don't even have to start gaslighting right away. For me, I immediately, and this is always who I am. The moment something bad happens, I immediately start thinking it's my fault. So that's something I still have to work on. But it's like, oh my God, something's wrong. What did I do? How did I make this so terrible so that this person, like, what? And in my 20s, I was such a people pleaser.
So I'll put it this way back to you.
Yeah, and so, but let's say it goes to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, so many things have gone wrong. Now I think I need to leave. How do I go about doing that? Like, if I come into you, Karen, and I'm like, I think I need to leave, but they're telling me no, and I don't know, and you're seeing, like, I'm not even necessarily going, I'm being abused. Like, I'm in a bad relationship.
I'll
I just think I need to leave.
This. Okay, so are you married in this scenario?
Sure. Let's say married.
Okay. What made you get married?
We were so in love.
Were you? What made you think you were in love? You start asking the questions. What made you think that you had any right to get married? What made you think? And that's what people... They don't see that, right? It is so rare for people to sit down and say, oh my God, I hear you want to leave. You don't know why. So let's back it up a bit. Why did you get married? Let's remember, I was crazy about him. Okay. What was going on in work and stuff when you decided to get married? Oh, I wasn't working. I hadn't worked. I was raising children. We got married after we had children.
Yeah.
Do you see where the perception starts to not perception, but the perspective starts to change?
Right.
Right. So what we're dealing with really is somebody who has relied on the other side for so long, and something is screaming at this person to say, be independent. You forgot something. So I'll say to people, maybe it's really not about separating. Maybe it's just about taking a little break and you going on a trip. Because what I hear in that thing is she loves you or he loves you, but there is something missing that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
So do they need to leave? Probably. Probably they're going to exit the relationship. I'm never that misled that I don't think it's happening already. But I'm also sensitive to, they've had I'm going to say this, how can I say this respectfully? The Council of the Friends Board has already voted this relationship is over.
Yeah, survivor. The partner's already been voted off the island.
Exactly. and I think that the poor person that's kind of trying to figure it all out, they're missing that part. Right. They're not hearing that part because the person that's doing the exiting or wants to do the exiting is not saying, I've spoken to 15 people and this is where I'm at. They're saying I'm leaving. And so this second person is way behind in the process. So oftentimes...
Oh yeah, might not even know that they've approached the mediator. Like I might, in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have I might have said something to my partner. I've been like, I think I need to see someone. I think we need to see someone. I think we need to talk about it. But then never actually going, here's what I have to say about it. Actually doing the actual act of talking.
There was a highlight to my career one day. Somebody called me and it was like a whole brand new I laugh at it now because, oh my God, I think I shook my head and did like a oh my God situation. They actually said, Karen, will you do the breakup for me?
Oh
I
no.
am. Isn't there movies made about this stuff? Like,
Yes.
what did you watch? Something from the 80s or the 90s?
Or
You know,
just
like the
what we did
breakup
when we
artist?
were
I'm not
12.
doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now
But
it's
that's
not
a
call.
sign of the.
Can you DM him for me and tell him it's not working out for me, Karen?
That's exactly what it is. And you know what that is? That's somebody who doesn't know how to communicate or say, I'm done, draw that boundary, and you're out. Right?
You know,
was
that's
I ever
so
was
true.
I ever that great at it? No. But I want to I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but I want to come back to this.
No, I'm literally just saying that's so true.
I really think that power imbalances, and this is where I get my how can I say this? Where I like to get involved in the stalking and the bullying and all that stuff. And I'll say, oh, I love taking on the aggressor. Okay. Because half the time, you're not even dealing with the person. You're dealing with the tactics on how they're trying to control something.
Oh, like that mechanics, the robotic aspect, the programming, right.
They're saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to post on Facebook how much of a dirty son of a gun you really are.
Right.
Guess who does the fighting for them? So when people come into power imbalances in mediation, often the person themselves can be corrected. But in order to get them corrected and come down to a point that they can communicate, it's really about reminding them that they don't need all these other influences that are unhealthy.
Right.
So I'll say to them,
right.
I know your friend Bonnie is a big part of your life. And I'm just using Bonnie randomly because I was just personally watching a vampire movie this morning, and the vampire's name is Bonnie. and Bonnie decides that, you know, I'm not going to, you know, let this person. I don't know how I'm going to leave, so I'm going to talk it over with 10 people, and then that board comes back. So then Bonnie gets into the mediation, and I'll say, Bonnie, you haven't made any decisions. And she'll say, yes, I have. Really? Which ones of them are your own?
Right.
Which would you not talk to somebody about? That wasn't a mutual friend, that has not sided with you in your plight, and is not your family. Because those are all biased people.
And don't forget that social media content follower that they're listening to all the time. Like, let's just even put in Charlotte Dobre, who I love. Like, I will watch her stuff, and I'm not even saying she's a bad person, because I watch her and I get a kick out of her antics and everything. But I don't know her personally, and yet I have listened to her and watched her so long. I can see how someone can start going, well, you know, I've watched all of these Am I the Asshole or the Petty things or the Bridezilla things, and, you know, Charlotte says this and Charlotte says that, and Charlotte. It's like, but you don't know Charlotte. Why are you treating her like a confidant?
Charlotte's not on the other side of the table here.
Yeah, she doesn't know you. She doesn't know your partnership. Yeah. She doesn't know what you're going through.
But actually, who just nailed it. They do know. That's the problem. You're not in a relationship with one person. You're in a relationship with 5 other people that happen to be biased to where we're trying to get to.
Or even just creating that. You're right. Creating that wonderful vortex.
People will say, Karen, you can't do power imbalances. Yeah, you can manage power imbalances because it's about limiting who the hell they're going to talk to. Right. So am I controlling them? Absolutely. But I'm controlling them in a way. So basically, I'm controlling and manipulating just like that person might be. But what it's happening is I'm doing it in a way that they're not suspecting it. Okay? They're still on the, oh, poor me. They're still the victim.
Right.
So people will often say, I'm not prepared for this, and want to leave. I've had it happen with siblings that have come to me. And one will be, oh my God, oh my God, oh my gosh. And I use that, oh my God, loosely. I'm not religious. And, oh my God, this is happening. And all our lives have been challenging. Mom and dad loved them more.
Yes, the sibling dynamics,
the
right.
Sibling rivalry, especially over death of a parent.
Yes.
And you see things happen. And in those situations, like, so when I'm talking about the narcissist or the couple that's been married, it doesn't matter what is the connection. It's what is the relationship. So we got two siblings, or we got a couple, or we got children involved, or we got too many people in the kitchen calling the kettle black, sort of deal. And they'll bring those people in and say, look, while we're in this situation, I don't want you talking to your son-in-law at all.
Right. So it sounds to me like you've had, well, here's the interesting, it's like you are bringing up a lot of what I would say are classically female dynamics, but I've also seen you work with a lot of men. And I think that we can get really tricked into thinking that binary, that because the same things apply to men, people who are non-binary, like people be people.
So I might, if this, when this goes public, take some clout from this comment, but I actually find women are the worst.
They can be. Well, there's that Machiavellian dysfunction that can happen where they've actually orchestrated the whole thing. Yeah.
And I've always said the aggressor in a power imbalance is always the first person who reaches out. It is something I've lived by because they have never failed me in establishing that.
That's a good tip.
Okay? You will never have somebody who's being assaulted to the point that, they're covering bruises up. They're going to work every day, and you haven't got a clue what's going on at home. Those people, they don't talk about it. So when I get women that go and say, this is what's happening to me, I listen. Of course I listen. But they're also talking to somebody who knows that the person who has walked into their office a couple of weeks before and was sitting quietly in the corner with a broken arm, and the child is really withdrawn beside them, and they're sitting there, and you can see that there's black bruises that are old.
Right.
They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
That was such a huge lesson for me in my career, where I'm going to say I was experiencing it. And I'm going to say there's a lot of mediators out there that haven't experienced stuff. And I think you need to experience the reality. Where do you get that? You go to a shelter, you have talks with people, you see what's really going on. Right. There's people that just don't have the opportunities in life that make them a victim.
Yes.
Other people that just don't talk about it, they're a victim. Absolutely. Will you see them in mediation? Never. Never. And I think that is I emphasize the never because you will never see them. So what I'm dealing with when I get to those power imbalances are somebody's behaviors. They're not their power, it's their behavior.
Right.
So I'm not a psychologist by any means, but I can definitely say that if you are actually trying to email your ex and write things in emails and fabricate emails in a way that is trying to entrap them into saying something, that's behavior.
Right.
And most times, those behaviors didn't start till somebody left.
Or started to head for the door, at least. Like their hand is on the door handle knob, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm going to say, no, they haven't left yet.
Really?
I'm going to say that they have left. I'll often say to people, they'll say, I left last week. So Karen, I want to leave. Okay, well, you need a safety plan. If you're being abused, you need a safety plan. And the safety plan means you have what's called, in those doomsday prepper things, the go bag. We use the same slang word for getting people out of a relationship that they shouldn't be in.
What kind of things would go into a go bag?
Oh, that's interesting. Always think about this. You need to be gone for a week. Couple pairs.
Like, imagine you're going on to Tahiti.
Maybe you're a professional. Maybe it needs to be a casual work outfit. Maybe it needs to be a suit in there. Maybe there's something that needs. And I'm taking this from both sides, like men's or women's suit. You don't know what you're doing, but you're not sure what you're doing yet, but something tells you be ready to leave any minute. Right. Okay. So a lot of the abuse these days, the old-fashioned stuff, if you want to call it, that still exists, where you're getting beaten on a regular basis. Those are huge. People are still being strangled every day.
Cupboards are locked, doors are locked. Yeah. You don't have access to
those
things.
Those are not the people that you will see in mediation. So I come back to who I tell them to pack something like for a week. If you have medication, I'm on medication. Do I take it every day? Sometimes I wake up and I go, oops, I forgot to take my one little pill that the doctor said you should take every day. Well, there's the extra pill for your bag. Like people get this extra stuff in place and then put it somewhere that nobody's thinking of. You can have mislabeled boxes.
Christmas
where
boxes
it's really not
or something.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And you've heard me reference that before. The Christmas boxes that really aren't decorations. They're exiting boxes.
Yeah.
So some advice I got one day from somebody just talking, actually it was a bank manager I was talking to, and we were talking about domestic violence. And she said, 2 of everything, Karen, and then you can leave. So people go, 2 of everything. I don't have 2 couches. No, 2 of everything, meaning you have a copy of any documentation that's important. Right. If you're going to leave once, always count on the fact that you may not get back in. So if you're going to leave, what's in that go bag might be your passport. It'll be your ID. It could be a copy of their ID, because if they're going to escalate, which often happens, you're going to need a picture of them for the police.
That's a really good piece of advice.
Also, your employers, if they start visiting your employer quite a bit, which happens in separations, they start to visit the employer. You need to let people know, this is who my ex is, man or woman. And if you see them around, I'm not coming out alone to talk to them. So I don't know if people realize this out there, but there are actually regulation out there now, that our policy that says the employers have due diligence. They have to actually protect you. So if they're aware if there's domestic violence happening.
That's important for everybody to know. Important. Laying those foundations at your work too, of like, do we have a document that talks about domestic violence?
So the employer might say things like, oh my God, Karen, your ex is back in the building again and causing problems, and can you get them under control? Domestic violence victims? They can't get that under control.
No, that's not going to happen.
People who are being manipulated in every aspect of their life, they can't get that under control.
Right.
And I'm always happy to hear when the police finally say, Karen or Bonnie, it is not your employer, that you don't need to do this when this happened to your employer. So what I find happens is when people start to get escalated and they start to do stuff, they're not even, okay, I need to back this up.
Okay.
Take a couple that's just normal. You figure they're fine, and one party wants to leave the marriage.
So we're not going to do Bonnie and Clyde? Okay, got it.
They're not going to do, they're not that kind of thing. No.
Jane and Derek. Let's do Jane and Derek, like typical heteronormative couple without kids. Let's do it with no kids, because it gets complicated with kids. Or do you want to throw in kids to the scenario?
They're going to use kids. Okay?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
Because I do find that the best mediations I have are the ones with no kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really cut and dry.
They're pretty easy. Nobody goes crazy. Nobody goes crazy if there's no assets and no children. Okay? So when you get these people in there and you find out, okay, there's a couple of kids, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm not letting them go to your house because I don't like the new people you're hanging around. What did you expect? You said you were leaving.
Yeah.
And now they can't meet new people?
How common is like even people who don't go into mediation, how common is that? One person leaves, the other person starts dating. And it's like, how dare they? Like they were supposed to wither and die and be sad that they were left. You know?
It happens so often, okay, that the empathetic person in me has a hard time not rolling your eyes saying, you have got to be kidding me.
I know. How dare they start dating someone and I'm all over his or her Instagram and I'm watching what they're doing. Oh my God.
So, you know, every mediator has a style. I am priding myself on, I am not your typical mediator. I have always prided myself on that. I shoot it from the hip. I say it like it is because they need to hear it. Is it my personal opinion? No, it's from sitting and watching this over and over and over again.
Like a broken record.
People, and you go, really?
I've been to this dance before. I've seen this movie.
You don't want the new roommate involved because suddenly, oh my God, they don't have a home to live in.
Yeah.
Well, of course they don't have a home to live in.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation the other day, you know, and somebody said, well, they're homeless because they don't have a partner. They just got kicked out. So you're going to deny children?
Yeah. The
one thing that can make everybody feel better? Because you don't think they should stay in a hotel. That's not cool.
No.
But we're the first person to take our own kid to a hotel and say, oh, we went swimming and had pizza and went to the zoo.
Right?
Right? It's such a huge weapon in itself.
Yeah.
People use it every time I friggin' turn around. So,
and we'll have to talk again about parental alienation because that's a huge issue.
Huge. But I'm glad you said the words though. It carries over into mediation. And I think that's why I'm here today. How does parental alienation work in mediation? And how do you manage it? It's a place to get people to talk. If I think anybody is going to be assaulted before they get into the same room, there's nobody coming to the same room.
Right.
Okay. Nobody. And but I usually like to meet them in person on a video call. Okay, in person. Because I'm looking for, so let's talk about my screening. I'm looking for the person that's really going to be a problem.
Right.
Like, can I help you or not? And more often than not, you start to see them. So let's say I'm on the phone and you'll see them like the tears will start. And I'll say, I understand it's a tough time, but I want you to take a breath and not cry. If you were telling me what's happening, I need you to tell me right now. Just tell me. Okay? So I'm not interested, and I'll say I am not your counselor. So crying
But Karen.
What I'm going to say to you if you're crying is, and making your plea is, maybe you need to take a minute. Because it's not me. I'm not the judge.
No.
So when they're talking to me, and let's say we're in the same room, the hands go across the table. That's the biggest one. Whoever reaches across that table first is your aggressor. The person who doesn't and stays back and quiet and their arms are crossed is more likely the person that's taking the verbal beating. And it probably is not physical yet. It's just verbal and emotional. And it can be worse. It can wear you down. It can make you sick. But you will see it because the person who comes in quiet to the mediation, gets in their chair, crosses their arms and sits back. Well, the way I'll watch that person is how much they engage. Then I get the guy, I'm just taking the guy as the opposite party. He'll have his arms crossed. Okay. But he's the first one, if he's the aggressor or the woman, whoever is the aggressor, will reach across the table to try and control the emotion and the words of the other person.
What if, let's say it's the woman that's leaving and the man that is like, let's say there's stuff that's on both sides. You know, they're trying to tell you the whole story of their relationship, you know, the movie, the narrative, from that one party. But the guy is sitting there back, his arms are crossed. He's saying nothing. He's almost non-participating this whole time. What do you do? Like, it's like, why are you here? This is what comes up for me. It's like, you've both come to this mediation. Why are you here then? If you're sitting back, disengaged,
I've
not participating, happen. What's going on?
Yeah. There's 2 cases I'm thinking of where it was both men. And you know how you go into a meeting and everybody takes their notebook for any meeting and you start taking your own notes, right? So I often have pieces of paper in the middle, or notebooks, or people that can take a little pad of a notebook with them, okay, when they leave. So I'll say, some people come in like it's a friggin' trial and they got all their evidence. And I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. So what I'll say, there's paper in the middle. If you want to take notes, take your own notes, but they are your own notes and you don't have to share them. But what I would like you to do is, if you feel like you really need to say something, I want you to, and it's not your turn to speak, you're going to make a note of it and you're going to wait your turn. Right. So what's happening is you're teaching them about communication and getting them back to basics.
What if that's what they like to do? They withhold. They won't even write down. They're non-engaging.
Oh, yeah. I had somebody where I was writing, and I'm saying, like, these are my notes because I have to produce the memo when I'm done. Okay? Nobody's in trouble. It's just my notes. They'll say, one person said to me, why do I need to take notes if you're taking notes? I said, what do you think you're going to get? One actually said to me, didn't you write that down? I said, what? I said, this is not your note. This is my note. And if I think you're a dink and that's in my notes, too bad for you. Okay. So I'll often say the power, what they're doing is they're doing that,
that withholding. If people can see us
now, we're got the arms crossed, and I'm just sitting here stronghold. The difference between the aggressor and the person that's being emotionally distraught,
right?
Meaning that they're constantly putting up with this, you can see the difference in them. Their whole body is vibrating.
Right.
The other person's deathly calm, but they got their arms crossed.
Right.
So they're trying to control themselves, and I will say to them, do not reach across the table.
Right.
These are the rules of today. Don't reach across the table. If you want to talk to her, you talk to her. So then the next thing they usually do is look at me and say, but this is what is going on. How can you take her? I'm not taking anybody's side. I'm just telling you how you'll conduct yourself in here. So I don't buy their bullshit. Because I have nothing invested in their bullshit. Right. And I know that's a harsh word, but that's exactly what it is. I'm not married to you. I don't have to put up with you. Right? But what they're trying to do, and they think they're good at it, is they're trying to actually bully the other female into having empathy for them.
Right.
That's a power imbalance.
Right.
Okay? I don't need somebody to hit somebody to have a power imbalance.
Right.
I need somebody to frame something in a way they're explaining it. That's a power imbalance. So then you'll get somebody, the woman, I'm thinking of a particular case that I had where I could see she's distraught. You can see she's distraught sitting there. Okay. And so I did offer another break. Let's just go out and why don't you get a drink or a cup of coffee? One, you never let the people leave at the same time, ever. Because guaranteed, the person that's feeling like they're not gaining is going to come at them, and that's usually the aggressor. Okay? So when I'm in these situations, I can tell you that I've had a safety talk before I get into these discussions, and I have a safety talk before they go home. I also have an established rule of how you'll communicate, and sometimes it's been it's an alternate method of mediation, but we might create a conversation chat group where I'm still involved in the loop.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because I know that just me being present and watching it over a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they're going to be on their best behavior, and that gives relief to the person that's struggling.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
It's an opportunity for them to have that chance to have a break from it all. Yeah.
And have a break. And the thing is, you'll get the best honeymoon behavior you've ever seen.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe even attentive.
You talk about that love bombing.
Yeah.
They're good behavior bombing. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I have another situation that just dawned on me where the person actually is multiple personality diagnosed, like up to 5 personalities. And the ex always approaches me saying,
never know who they're going to get.
Maybe we should go to mediation. We should go to mediation. You can't go to mediation because, one, I'm not a person that can take care of that.
Yeah.
Because they are diagnosed.
Yeah.
So another word that really pisses off a mediator, I'm going to tell you right now. They're a narcissist, Karen.
Yeah. Yeah.
A narcissist.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's the word of the century.
Yeah.
You know?
So vogue. Yeah.
Like, they're not a narcissist. The pain of the situation is making them fight in a way that you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening. But somebody with multiple personalities, oh my God, it very well could be one of them are a narcissist. It's not that I don't believe in the diagnosis. I don't believe everyone that comes to every meeting is a narcissist.
Has a dysfunction and has a mental health disorder that manifests as narcissism. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not disagreeing that their tactics are wrong.
Right.
Okay. The tactics they're using are wrong. So
what would be, let's say someone might have even been in hiding, they're embarrassed. And we don't talk that often about someone who's being abused, male, female, non-binary, doesn't matter. Let's just say it's actually a man, right? Who is a professional. Maybe they're making a lot of money themselves. They're independent. They do all these things, but they are being abused. They hardcore manipulated. Maybe their partner does have actual narcissistic personality disorder. Like, who knows? But there is abuse. They're embarrassed. They don't want to say. They've been maybe in therapy. They've been getting messages. Maybe they've even gone that step and contacted a lawyer. Then the lawyer has referred them to you. How do they go about approaching you, but they're worried about,
I'm gonna
what do I do?
So I'm gonna say it like this. I have never had I think there might have been one lawyer who recommended me. Because mediators are a dime a dozen, really. Okay, it's an unregulated field in Ontario. I'm part of it, I'm not a doctor. I am not a social worker, which, by the way, I have my own issues when it comes to a 23-year-old social worker. Like, are you kidding me? Where's the experience? Okay.
Right.
So I have my own issues and thoughts with that stuff. I'm going to have to get you to back up to the question. I'm so sorry, Chantal. What was this question
someone
again?
who is actually being abused and is afraid to reach out, but has done some of the work over enough time, and then a lawyer has referred to you. And then how do you, how do they take, what are some things they can do to maybe reach out to you and signal to you if they're going to come to you?
Usually they don't have to signal too much, to me. It's my own observations and based on my own experience of working with people, showing up at people's houses and seeing physical abuse, showing up at people's houses and seeing emotional abuse. Okay. So, that my experience puts me there, and people will come to me and they'll say, I've heard that you'll talk with people that are having problems communicating. Yeah, but I'm not a counselor. So I'll assess them actually for a situation of, do you want to leave or do you want to stay? Because I am also a believer, and this is what people are shocked by. People may be abused, but they have no intention of leaving. So what do you do with that person?
Right.
They don't want to be saved. They want to be able to be stronger to stay. And people don't get it. They don't get it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say a lot of my discussions are happening by the time I get to mediation, which is only a couple of phone calls, okay? The intake process, if you want to call it that. I'm already through all the imbalances. I'm after the issues. So basically I've reeled them in already, and I'm managing the aggressor just like they're managing the other person. So am I biased in that situation? I'm biased in the form that I'm managing the behavior, not the person. Okay. So that's where I get different. Some people will come to me like that professional person that says, man, they're just so hard on me, and I really am just on business trips, and I really am just working my butt off. Yeah, and it just doesn't seem to satisfy them.
Nothing satisfies them. I don't know what to do. Yeah.
It's because, my darling, it's not about you.
Right. Yeah.
It's about them. But they're portraying it that you're the only one who can make it better.
Yeah.
So that's somebody who doesn't know how to handle themselves. Again, it comes from all the social media, all the influences out there nowadays. It's so hard for people to manage their own disputes. So the person that is a professional and really just doesn't know what to do, sometimes I'll bring them in and just have a talk about their thinking of leaving you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the one question nobody asked. So am I a mediator of domestic violence? I'm a mediator that takes care of, I talk the lingo, like, yes, power imbalances, all this stuff, but I'm really a person that says, what the hell are we dealing with here?
Yeah.
And why can't you move forward in court?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's a tough question, Chantel, at the end of the day. And I just have to step away for a second, but it's a tough question at the end of the day. But it really is about understanding where people are at. And it may not even have anything to do with them trying to leave the relationship because people think they're being abused. Have you ever noticed that somebody thinks they're going to be abused? The abuse didn't start until after I left. You're absolutely right. That's what I say to them. Oh, I don't doubt it a bit. You know, I'll put my own story in here. Slept with my ex-husband until the day I left.
Right.
And they knew I was leaving.
Right.
Why? Because it was never about them. So I was that professional saying, this is just not where I'm at. I made a mistake. I should never have got married.
Right.
Do I love my kids? Absolutely. But you're not the person that I should have married. Okay? So sometimes you're dealing with stuff that's so layered and buried that it takes a good, healthy conversation of, let me ask you some real shit questions. And then you all of a sudden you see a shift in somebody. You know? So a lot of work that I do for people. So let's talk about another form of, is it mediation or manipulation? I laugh. Yes, I'm laughing as I say that because people hire me to have the conversations with their exes. And the ex doesn't even know what's happening.
Really? Well, wait a second. Doesn't know that what is happening, that someone's leaving, or so it's like wait.
So they've left, and somebody is pissed off. Somebody has moved on.
Okay.
But there's kids involved, and they cannot make a simple decision on pick the kids up from school at 4:00.
Right? Oh my gosh! How often does that come up?
Every Friday becomes an ordeal. You know? Do you know that Friday's my busiest work day? Yeah. It's because it's kid exchange day.
Right.
You know, and is it a form of mediation? You know what? I'll just say, you can't do that. Or people will say, well, you manage the text. Oh, I do. They'll send me the text that's the problem, and I send one back, and they send that.
Right.
And it changes things. So how do we get cases moving? It's taking people like me in the background that's not really mediating, but they're manipulating the behavior.
So it's like there's a coach aspect to what you've almost
Absolutely.
created a different option for people too.
You just made me realize in my career I actually have managed to create an anti-stalking business, coaching business.
Yeah.
It's funny when you think of it that way, but the thing is, it sounds ridiculous because it's taking ridiculous things to occur to solve the media influence.
That is so true. Oh my gosh. I can think of at least 10 people right now who I would love to find a way, and that's the problem, is when you're aware of people who are in a power balance situation and you even try to reach out and be like, hey, can I get you support? Can I do that? They won't accept it. And I would love for them to be like, and I have, remember, I've called you up and say, you may get a call from somebody soon, and they've never reached out. And it's just like, if only you could just, what can I give you to tell you that Karen could be so, well, no. When you see it, when you see something happening out in the world, right? And you're like, something's going on. I really think, here, can you call my friend Karen? Maybe that's the better tactic. Because I said, I think you could really benefit from my friend. Not. I think I've contextualized it as, please contact Karen Smith, who's a paralegal and a mediator, and she has a background and I put your professional credentials forward, and maybe that's not the way to handle it. Actually, kind of what you're saying is the opposite. Is hey, I think that my friend Karen is really good at this. Maybe you should talk to her. Doy.
I often,
light bulb.
While I appreciate the kudos, okay, I've actually even thought about leaving mediation, right? Because I'm moving away from it, and I'm going to say probably the easiest word you use today, and I'm moving into more of a coaching thing.
Yeah.
And so I find for me, my coaching actually will not help the mediation process at times.
Okay.
So I'm more interested in fighting the fight for the person to coach them out, and at the end of it. So my longest one is 5 years long. It was a 5 years long relationship with somebody who needed my help, and it went from this person could not even type a response text without losing their mind and it being a 6-hour conversation.
Right.
Okay. Oh my God, that person needs some help.
Right.
Okay. So I teach them how to respond. And then I say, don't respond. Why are you responding? Why are you engaging?
Oh my gosh.
You're only driving yourself nuts.
It's so necessary. You're like the because Dr. Phil is sort of this person that's out there that gives all of this hardcore advice, but he's a TV personality saying, no, call Karen. That could even be your coaching service. Just call Karen.
Call Karen.
Call Karen.com.
It's funny because my phone rings 24 hours a day, but Friday is definitely the big day, and Sundays are the other one if there's an exchange day.
Right.
So, this discussion was to be about mediation. That's great. Mediation has its up and downs. It has its place. But I am a person that has experience in places that people never saw before in their lives. So I take all my experience and all my jobs that I've had, and now my ability to practice law. And I try to create a way for people to live in peace with themselves.
Right.
That's my goal. That's what I do. Call it coaching, call it manipulation, call it whatever you want.
Call it world peace building, one person at a time.
But you will learn from me how to not give a shit for the right reasons. Yeah. For the right reasons. Okay. Awesome. And that's about all I can do. But yeah, I think we need a whole topic on parental alienation. I would love to do it. Seen a lot of it. And I would say that when I am having discussions with people,
how to stop it in its tracks.
how to manage it.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop it. You can't stop it. If somebody is harassing you,
if they're bent on doing it, it's happening no matter what.
It's happening.
Yeah.
But most of the times it's all got something to do with their hurt.
Yeah.
That's the healthy person trying to attack the person without a mental health diagnosis.
Right.
So
Karen, thank you so much for today. Let me and listeners know if they want to contact you. How do they find you? How do they reach out to you?
Well, you can call me directly. I have many emails, but I always give my phone directly. 613-323-5282. Okay. My email is essential mitigation, and it's essential, the word essential, and then mitigation@gmail.com.
Awesome.
But yes, you can always reach me. And again, I'm in cooperation with Mohana Law out of Ottawa, and together we do take on the cases that nobody wants.
Awesome. Thank you again, Karen. Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. And if you are reluctant to get in contact with her directly, but you still have questions for Karen, please feel free to reach out at toughcallmediation@gmail.com. You can find us on our socials, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. And thanks again for listening, for your support. Please like, rate, and subscribe, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
You've been listening to Tough Call, a mediation podcast hosted by C.T. Eller and Dale Sheldon. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Discord. This podcast was edited by Jean Sarrazin, with social media and marketing by Jazz Virbadi and Hope Ersek. Original music by Ty Ray Lawton. This podcast was sponsored by Herb Legal LLP, where you can find more episodes at www.herblawservices.com. Thank you for listening.